Hey guys, today I want to talk about one of my favorite movies, and it's probably not a movie that comes to mind if somebody says, what are your favorite movies? But that movie is Freddy Got Fingered, and I just rewatched it last night, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is one of my favorite movies. I genuinely adore this movie. And if you don't know what it is, Freddy Got Fingered is a comedy from the 90s by Tom Green. And Tom Green was this like edgy comedian who did like public pranks and crazy stuff like that on MTV. And the studio came to him, they're like, here's $14 million, make us a movie. And he proceeded to make one of the stupidest movies ever made for them called Freddy Got Fingered. And it's the story about the wannabe cartoonist animator who's like living at home with his parents, and it's a very it has the bones of a cliche story, but throughout the entire thing he plays the protagonist and he just acts like a lunatic. You know, he's literally tearing babies out of women in the maternity ward and swinging them around on the umbilical cord. Like, it's just like, you can't root for a protagonist who does that. Like, he tries to have a sympathetic scene right after he does that, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. And it's sort of a movie that is widely regarded as one of the worst movies ever made. And over the years, and more, I hear a discourse around it that maybe he intentionally made it this way. And I think people get caught up in general on intention when it comes to art. They're like, what did the artist actually want to say? It's like, well, what did you get personally? I think your personal experience with an artwork and your personal interpretation of it is just as valid, regardless of if the artist had the idea to make you feel that way. And you know, there's tons of movies that, you know, maybe I cry at that a part that the artist didn't even think people would cry at. Like, some movies I just like start welling up and I'm like, why am I even crying right now? I don't even know. Or, you know, in the case of like The Room, you're laughing at something that maybe Tommy Wiseau wanted you to cry at. Or, you know, your reactions to a movie are totally different than what the creator intended or not. So I think that's just as valid because it's your emotional experience with a piece of art. And with Freddy Got Fingered, I am just dying laughing from start to finish. I think it's one of the funniest comedies ever made. I literally, like, there's not a bad scene. Every scene cracks me up. And I think I'm on the side of history that Tom Green did it on purpose because it's too self-aware. Like, if you watch it now, it's clearly self-aware, like absurdist, Adult Swim, surrealist humor. You know, anti-humor in ways. But even with that said, there's so many like subtext plot lines to the whole thing. Like, in the movie, he gets his cartoon bought for $1 million and he blows it all on proving his dad wrong and torturing his dad. And I think, you know, that's a direct parallel to Tom Green being handed this blank check to make a movie. And he's like, I've never made a movie. Why would they give me this insane amount of money? Might as well just blow it and be stupid, because what the fuck else are we going to do, you know? And I think it's just like, people have described it as Dadaist, and Dada is a movement in art that, you know, it was like the fountain or mutt. I'm not that well versed in art history, but it was a movement that took absurdism and pointlessness and stuff like that and just said anything can be art. And I think Freddy Got Fingered is a great example of that, because as stupid and inane and grossed out and like gory as it can be, there is like so much laying under the surface, and I think it is picking apart how hollow these stories we're sold are. You know, it takes a very cliche story and it replaces the center character with a fucking lunatic. It even makes the title makes no sense. There's it's from one scene in the movie, Freddy Got Fingered. It has nothing to do with the movie. You know, he just like shows how much you could like pick apart the classical structure of a movie we're sold, and it still works as long as you pay for music. And, you know, he has licensed music, musical score, you know, expensive helicopter shots, and, you know, it's like it still works as a movie even if your person's a lunatic. So what are we even watching? What are these like hollow pieces of art that don't even have like a solid core? It's just like moments of recognition that were being sold. It's like, yes, this is the happy part, this is the sad part, this is the part where the protagonist is down, this is the part where the protagonist wins and proves everyone wrong. It has all the beats, and the beats still land arguably as well as they would in any cliche Hollywood like movie, and yet they're being told by an idiot, and it's so delightful to watch. Rip Torn plays his dad and commits so hard. One of the best performances in a comedy. It's just so funny, him and Tom Green's dynamic, and it's so heartwarming. I remember watching like special features on the DVD, and Rip Torn just had a blast making it, and despite the movie's reputation, it's like, oh, he saw that it was funny at the time too. And genuinely just one of the movies that makes me laugh the most. I think just enjoy it as a stupid comedy, or maybe read more into it if you want, because I do think it has a lot of interesting things to say in its own stupid, like, roundabout way. I think it's also says a lot about manners. I think it's kind of like talking about like how we go through life with these preordained ways, like our shirt tucked in, our tongue bitten, where it's like, why does it matter if you get from point A to point B prim and proper, or if you do it like a lunatic screaming and yelling? It's like the same thing for the movie, same thing for how we like go about our lives. We're just like censoring ourselves daily for no reason other than it's what we're supposed to do. And Tom Green was a great example of a guy who was just a lunatic and embraced it and was an idiot for a while. And funnily enough, if you look him up now, he has a YouTube channel and he lives in a van. He does van life stuff, and he seems to have calmed down quite a bit. But his comedy was just kind of ahead of its time in some ways, even though it was right on the cusp of its time. I feel like it led right into like Adult Swim and all that stuff taking off, but it was definitely humor that people weren't quite ready for, because just look at the critical reception to see that like no one knew what he was doing. And anything like that was so misunderstood in its time, I always have like an extra appreciation for that. Like, I'm like, that person was like willing to be bold and weird and go places no one would go. And just on a base level of stupid comedy, it's so fun to watch with friends. It's like, I just watched Ace Ventura, rewatched that, and I'm like, this is no different than Freddy Got Fingered. Like, Ace Ventura is a lunatic the whole movie. Like, and I think it works way better in Freddy Got Fingered, because there's like a level of awareness to it where you're like, okay, he knows that this is just off the rails and insane. Whereas like Jim Carrey, it's like, does he think this is like funny and cool, or does he think that does he know that Ace Ventura is a total like social pariah lunatic? I don't know. But watching Ace Ventura and Freddy Got Fingered in a row is like, it's weird that Ace Ventura, by and large, is remembered pretty fondly, or at least Jim Carrey's whole shtick that he did in all those movies, but is remembered quite fondly, whereas this movie was like shit upon. When all I think Tom Green did it with a bit more finesse and sarcasm, and a bit more, less winky, nudgy. It's less like, I'm being goofy, look at me, and it's more just like, it's more like point and laugh at the weird guy, and him being willing to be that weird guy you point and laugh at, I guess. I don't know. I can't. It's one of those movies I can only say so much about, because at the end of the day, it just makes me laugh, and I think that's what a comedy is supposed to do. And it does a great job at it. And anyone who's been turned away by people saying it's bad, check it out with an open mind. It's not going to blow your mind. I know I make it sound deeper than it is at times, but it really is a special, funny movie that has such a unique tone and structure and pacing. It's such a strange experiment of how to do a Hollywood movie and just do it in the worst way possible and create something better for that, But yeah, I just wanted to share that because it was on my mind. I hope you guys are having a nice day. Love you guys. I love movies. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.